start. I know there's a bunch of people still coming on, but I want to reward everyone for being on time. So first of all, I want to thank my old and dear friend, not old, just from a long time ago.
No, we're
We are not old.
Anyway.
We are 28. Okay. So Chaya Ertel is one of my dearest friends, even though we don't see each other as much as I would like. It's like no time has passed when we do. And she and I had the idea to do this class because there were a number of students that have asked both of us over the years for some information on this mitzvah. And who better to teach this class than me, who totally did not grow up religious and always vowed, never, ever will I put anything on my head. So Hashem has a fantastic sense of humor. And so here I am teaching a class. We called it my least favorite mitzvah or something like that. So I have a lot of information to give over tonight, and I'm going to try to talk as quickly as I can. Forgive the background. I tried to do a simulated background. It looked awful. So we're just not doing that. So you get to see my playroom. So I put my website up here and my name on Facebook so that you have access to reach out to me. I don't know how much time we're going to have for questions. I would like to just invite you guys to write in the chat any questions that you have. I'm going to try to get to them. If at all possible, I will try to get to all the questions. The truth of the matter is, I've probably addressed all of your questions in the actual material of the class because I had all the questions that there are to have about this mitzvah. And so that's how this class developed. This class is an outgrowth, as so many of my classes are, of my own issues related to Judaism. So, so I put this info behind me in case you want to reach out to me privately. I do try to post a lot of good content on Facebook. Those of you who know me know that I'm a dating and marriage coach. So Baruch Hashem, thank God I just had my 128th client get engaged, yay. So if you would like to meet with me privately on that front, you are more than welcome to. And I just do a lot of classes on Jewish issues related to being a woman. So relationships, modesty, a woman's role, lots of stuff like that. Frankly, all the stuff that I had the biggest issues with when I started looking into traditional Judaism. So on my website, by the way, you will find all of my favorite books divided by topic. It's like the best Baal Tshuva library, right? It's divided, science and Torah, feminism and Judaism, like literally everything divided. And I've read all the books on there and they're all great. Also, there's a contact me section if you'd like to contact me. And my dating pointers are up there as well. So the way we're going to do the class is, first of all, please write your questions in the chat. If you feel like you're going to forget them or you need clarification for something that I just said. Otherwise, we'll leave most of the questions to the end. And again, I probably will get to most of your questions in the actual content of the class. I also wrote a website here, rabbimanning.com. So I was recently put onto him. He has source sheets and recordings for pretty much every issue that made me crazy about, about Judaism and women. So really cool stuff, including the source sheets for this class. So I'd really recommend, if you're into sources, I'd recommend that you go on his website. You can download it and print it out and all of that. Okay. I also want to mention that there is only one book out there that I'm aware of about this mitzvah. It is this book called Hide and Seek. I can't really give it my full approval for various reasons. So if you do read it, that's your own decision. I'm not giving it my stamp of approval. There's a lot of good stuff in there. It's like essays from different women who cover their hair and whatever, but there's some things that I don't agree with in there also. So unfortunately, there really isn't a book that really encapsulates what we're going to talk about tonight. Maybe that's on my extended to-do list during quarantine. But I'm going to try my best to give over a lot of information. If you are interested in getting sources or notes, please feel free to reach out to me afterwards. Okay. So first of all, more people need to open their video because like I'm talking to Emma and Rebecca. Come on, guys, really. Thank you so much. Come on, keep it going. I want to make the, I haven't socialized in 2.5 months. Okay. So like you're my social life. Come on. Great. This is awesome. Makes it feel much more exciting. Keep it going. And we have close to 60 women on the call. That's awesome. Great. Hi, this is so nice seeing old friendly faces. Great. Okay, keep it coming. I would love to see all the beautiful faces on here. Okay, so first of all, disclaimer. This is my, someone already has a question. Hang on. Yeah, so someone asked me why I don't really recommend the book. This is a really important point. And some of you don't know me, so like, whatever, you'll just get to know me tonight. I tell it like it is. So whenever you're learning Torah, you have to know what filter the Torah is coming through to you. So like the Torah is pure and the Torah is truth. However, when it goes through a filter, you imagine like in the theater, there's like blue, green, and red lights, right? There's like a film that goes in front of the light and makes it blue. So the light is white, but when it goes through the blue film, it becomes blue. So you always have to know who's teaching you Torah and what their biases are and where they're coming from. So because I know the backstory of the author, I'm reluctant to advocate for this book. There is a lot of good stuff in there. I reread it over Shabbos. There's really a lot of good stuff in there, and it's nice to hear like different people's perspectives about this mitzvah. All I'm saying is take it with a grain of salt. That's all I'm saying. So I don't want to get myself into trouble. Okay. And book is on the to-do list. Okay. So disclaimer. This is my hardest mitzvah by far. There's like, I didn't grow up religious at all, completely secular. So there's like Shabbat, I fell in love with, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Get to turn off your phone and like just be and enjoy all the social life and being with family and friends and whatever. Kosher, great. I took that in stages, took me years. Okay, fantastic. Even dress, which took me 20 years, legit, to figure out how to put clothing on myself and have it look cute and express my personality. It took me 20 years. Okay. So if you're less than that, you're doing great. Don't be discouraged. So it really took me 20 years to figure this out. For many years, I felt like I was wearing someone else's clothing. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like my Rebbitzins clothes, but it wasn't me. And it takes a while to just feel integrated, like comfortable in your own skin while dressing in a different way than obviously I had grown up with like very small amounts of fabric. So even that I've really learned to appreciate, and I love fashion, and I like going to the mall and picking out like the few things that are according to Jewish law okay, and putting together an outfit, and like it's cheap because like I got it at H&M and Zara and Forever 21 and whatever, and I get creative with that. Even that mitzvah I've learned to love. Hair covering is a mitzvah that I can literally and honestly tell you I am doing completely lishma. Lishma means just for God. Not because I'm getting any side benefits out of it, although I will tell you when it's a 3-day Yom Tov, right? When like the Yontiv goes into Shabbos, everyone else has disgusting oily hair by the 3rd day, and I actually have awesome hair. Okay, but that's the only side benefit I get to this mitzvah. The rest of the year, I find it extraordinarily difficult, and I'm married almost 22 years, even though I'm 28. Okay, don't do the math. So I've been doing this mitzvah since I got married, not to the full degree that I do today, but I did cover my hair as soon as I got married. So 22 years I've been doing this mitzvah, and still to this day, like I walk into my house and whoosh, off it goes most of the time. So it's really, really hard. And I just want to preface this class by saying that my purpose in giving over this class is to encourage you, to educate you on a mitzvah that is extraordinarily unpopular. There are many, many, many women out there who identify themselves as, I am an observant Torah Jew, Orthodox, whatever label you want to use, but they don't cover their hair either they do it part-time or not at all. It's a very unusual thing, right? Meaning if someone says they're an Orthodox Jew, that they're not going to eat bacon, right? Like that's just, it doesn't go together. But there's a lot of women who, if you ask them, they would say, yeah, I'm Orthodox, but they don't cover their hair. So it's a very unpopular mitzvah. It's a very difficult mitzvah. Those two things usually go together. And for me personally, I'm just telling you, I'm just like being honest. It's really, really hard for me still to this day. And what I try to tell myself, and you know, as with so many of my classes, I'm really just talking to myself, and you're eavesdropping. What I tell myself is, this is such a beautiful opportunity for me to do a mitzvah just for Hashem, just because I love God. That's it. I'm not getting side benefits. I'm not enjoying it. I really don't enjoy it, even after all these years. I do the most I can to make it fun and cute and another accessory and whatever, but it's really, really challenging. And I try to remember that, you know, like in marriage, sometimes your husband asks you to do something and you don't really, it doesn't make logical sense to you, and you don't really want to necessarily do what he's asking, but because you love your husband, unless it's like a crazy request, you'll do it because you love him. So too with our relationship with God, sometimes there are mitzvahs that we connect with great, like we just love Shabbos so much. It's so easy to connect to Shabbos. And then there's other mitzvahs that we're like, this is really hard and I don't really want to do it. But we get to a point in our journey that sometimes we're like, you know what, I'm ready to take this mitzvah on, even though I don't understand it fully, and even though I don't enjoy it, because I just love Hashem so much. And I always look at Judaism as kind of like a package deal, meaning if I want a husband who doesn't look at other women ever, like no internet, no magazines, when there's girls on the street not wearing whatever, he focuses on their face. He's completely and utterly devoted to me. And my whole life I was looking for something like that, right? I was in very long relationships with guys who, like, you know, a girl would walk down the street and he'd be like, that's so disrespectful. So it's a package deal. So if I want a man who's going to be so devoted and respectful to me and not look at anything that he's not supposed to look at, so too, there are things that I'm going to do for him and in the context of that relationship that are not so comfortable or easy for me. So that's my disclaimer. I will tell you that it says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, this is my favorite line in all of Chazal. It says, Lefum Tzara Agra, which means according to the struggle that you have in a particular mitzvah, equals, that is the reward you get for that mitzvah. So, you know, I always give this example, but I have a friend who became more religious together. And she always wore these like long flowy skirts, Jade Jill, hippie trippy, whatever. And I always wore extraordinarily small pieces of fabric. So who do you think got the most reward for the mitzvah of tzniut, of presenting oneself in a little bit more of a covered, dignified way? Her or me? Me, obviously. For her, this was natural. This was something that it was her sense of style. She just always liked dressing that way. For me, this was like, wait, what? I have to have fabric that goes to where? Like, I didn't have one thing in my entire closet, not one, okay, that fit the laws of Judaism, not one piece of clothing, okay? So I always think it's kind of funny that there are a lot of high schools that have me come talk about these topics to the girls, like modern Orthodox schools. And I always just think it's so funny because like me, like who are you talking, like me, the one who had the most trouble with all this stuff. And this is who they want to hear from. And I guess it's just that they find me relatable because I'm very honest about the fact that it was hard for me. So, so Lefum Tzara Agra means a mitzvah that's hard for you, you're going to get more reward for. So when I put this thing on my head, when I don't want to, I remind myself that I'm doing a mitzvah in the highest way possible, which is lishma, not because it's fun, not because I get side benefits, but just because God told me to, and I love him and I want a relationship with him. And I'm getting the most reward for it of probably, of definitely any of the mitzvahs that I do, since it's the hardest for me. Okay, so that's my disclaimer. So I'm going to give over a lot of information. Then we're going to get to the chat. Okay, so hang tight. So because hair covering is an unpopular mitzvah, so some of us might have assumed that it's not halacha, that it's not Jewish law. And I've even had people say to me, what do you mean? Like I've gone to like Orthodox communities and I go to Orthodox shul and like then the women take off their hat. So it must be fine, right? And so my line is always, we don't judge the Torah by looking at what the Jews are observing. Everyone's human. Everyone has a harder time with certain mitzvahs, but we want to look at what does the Torah actually say, not looking at what the behavior is around us. Okay, so what does the Torah say? Okay, so I'm not going to give over every in and out of every source. Please check rabbimanning.com, okay, if you are interested in printing out the source sheets. I did it myself. The Torah source we know goes back to Parshas Naso. There's a whole discussion, which you could do an entire separate class on, of a woman who is suspected of adultery. She's called a sota, and her husband suspects her of, doing something that she shouldn't have done with a man that she shouldn't be with, okay? She's a married woman. So there's a whole procedure. He brings her to the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, to the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, and the priest does this whole procedure where he basically tries to get her to confess if she was in fact unfaithful. If she was unfaithful and she says, yeah, had a moment of weakness, sorry, tshuva, whatever, they divorce and they go their separate ways in peace. If she maintains her innocence and in fact she wasn't innocent, she dies a very gruesome death, as does her lover, wherever he happens to be walking down Broadway or West End Avenue. Okay, so what's part of the procedure? They erase Hashem's name in some water. She drinks the water. If she drinks the water and she was guilty and she says she was innocent, she dies a gruesome death, as does the guy. If she was innocent, she's going to drink the water and it's going to be obvious, since she didn't blow up, it's going to be obvious to her husband that she was actually innocent. She didn't have relations with another man. And then the priest blesses them and they go home. And the next time that they're together, Hashem blesses them with a baby, which is basically his haskama. That means his stamp of approval, right? Now go together in unity and shalom and peace and rebuild your marriage. Now, just on a total side note, because I give a lot of marriage classes, and this is related to this mitzvah of hair covering, one thing that we don't often talk about is this whole procedure happens before the husband can prove that she's done anything wrong. Now, barring the 0.1% of weird psychotic guys, why does he suspect her? So there's a whole backstory to this that basically, and I don't know anyone who's cute nowadays, so I'm just going to use Brad Pitt because I'm old, okay? So your husband comes to you and says, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable when you hang out with Brad Pitt. Can you just not? Makes me a little bit insecure and jealous. Now, instead of saying, honey, I love you, and of course, why would I want to do anything to make you upset? Instead, this woman goes and hangs out with Brad Pitt in a secluded room, by themselves in a locked room for 10 minutes, okay? So she's not going to win any good wife awards. That's the first thing. And there is something about the whole ceremony that the priest does leading up to her drinking is that he uncovers and messes up her hair. So this is basically mida keneged mida, which means tit for tat, basically, for her not acting as a proper married woman should have. Therefore, she has to undergo this ceremony that is not dignified, that undoes her hair. So one thing that we want to just remember about this whole episode is that she really wasn't behaving like a married woman should in the first place, even if she didn't have relations with whoever this was, not Brad Pitt. I don't want to incriminate him, right? She wasn't really being a good wife, as we would expect our husband also not to do things like that, okay? So that's the Torah source, that basically her hair is somehow uncovered and disheveled through this experience, okay? And Rashi, who's our most famous biblical commentator, gives two derivations for the halacha. Number one, uncovering the woman's hair is designed to be a humiliation of sorts, right? Because they're trying to get her to confess. Because again, then they go their separate ways, Shalom al Yisrael, right? Okay, from this, we can infer that covering their hair in public is dignified. And number two, Rashi says the need to uncover the hair of the married woman implies that married women's hair was generally covered at that time. Okay, so this is very linked to the concept of public dignity. And the mitzvah comes to indicate that a certain status in society brings certain obligations of dress. By the way, I found out recently that the striemel, the fur hat that the Hasidish men wear, they only start wearing that upon marriage, as a woman starts also only covering her hair upon marriage. Okay, just side note. Okay, so we are meant to cover our hair when we get married, okay? And the Mishnah and the Gemara, they go into a whole back and forth. Is this a Torah source? Is this a rabbinic source? Okay, the vast majority of opinions, the way the halacha, the way the Jewish law is clear to have developed, is that this is a Torah law to cover one's head in some way, to cover one's hair in some way. How much, when, in front of who, these are the things that are discussed. But there are no rabbis that are legitimate, to my knowledge, in any source, going all the way back to Rashi, all the way down to today, that would say it's okay for a woman to go out in public with absolutely nothing on her head. Okay, so that's just an important thing to clarify. This is not a rabbinic custom. This is not a fashion statement, as I heard one rabbi say, okay, determined by the times that we live in. This is a mitzvah from the Torah. By the way, all the laws of dress are not even mentioned in the Torah. All it says is we're supposed to walk modestly with God. What does that mean? Okay, so there are many, many mitzvot in the Torah that really are not explained, even like cooking a calf in its mother's milk. Like, what does that mean? How do we not eat chicken parmesan from that? You know what I'm saying? So there's like an oral law that it's very important to be aware of. If anyone's interested in how all of these halachas are developed, there's a wonderful 3 books. They're yellow books by Rabbi Ellenson. I'll try to write it here. Hang on. That I found really helpful because my Hebrew is not great and it is all in English. You know, it's English and Hebrew. Rabbi Ellenson. And the books are called Serving Our Creator, I think, The Modest Way, and I forget the third. Okay, so it's 3 books. There you go. That really, it starts with the Torah source, then the Mishnah, Gemara, down to today, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Rav Moshe Feinstein, and you can literally, it's every mitzvah related to women in Judaism and how it developed. It's very, very interesting. I found it very helpful, okay? So basically, from a Torah law perspective, for a woman to go out in public, it's called in the shuk, right, in the marketplace, with nothing on her head, this is a violation of Torah law. Then there's something called Dat Yehudit, which basically means the custom of your community. So obviously in the Hasidish communities in Israel or in Williamsburg, they have different ways to cover their hair. You may have seen like the little wig with the pillbox hat on top, right? They do a double head covering. That's their custom. Some of the Satmar wear those turbans, right? And they shave their head underneath. Okay, the average regular Ashkenazi Orthodox woman in America, most of us wear what are called shaitels, wig. Some people wear tichels, scarves, hats, whatever. We're gonna have a little bit of a fashion show at the end with my 2 teenage daughters that I basically bribed to do a little fashion show. So we're gonna do that at the end, and we're gonna show different options, okay? I'm gonna just turn around and show you the back of this. Okay, can you see? So this is still from the bar mitzvah that I made like 2 days before Corona happened. So basically I'm too scared to deal with this thing because I can't take it to the lady to wash it and fix it. So I just left it up in this beautiful like half updo, which she did. And I had this gorgeous like sequiny, you know, crystally thing in the back. It looked gorgeous, but that literally happened right before Corona. And then like, I'm just wearing it like this because I can't do anything with it. I'm too scared. Okay. So anyway, so we're going to do a fashion show at the end. So stay tuned to the end. Okay. Okay. So community standards would mean, so from the Torah, I can't go out with nothing on my head. I have to cover my hair in some way. That's from the Torah. And then rabbinically, you know, dat Yehudit, based on my community standard, is going to determine how do I do that, right? If I'm Sephardi and I'm living in Israel, so I'm wearing one of those gorgeous scarf contraptions that I have literally no ability to do. I am the most completely dysfunctional person in this area. When I wear a scarf in the summer, I literally like around my bun. That's it. Like I can't do anything. I'm like dyslexic in this area. I know Rebecca's on here and she makes these gorgeous contraptions that I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. And I've had the little demos. I still can't do it. Okay. So it's just easier for me to plunk this on my head. Anyway, so if you're Sephardi in Israel, you're wearing some gorgeous like scarf thing and you look like Queen Esther, right? If you're a typical Ashkenazi woman in America, most of us wear wigs most of the time, but we're also, you know, there's a snood, there's tichels, right? We're going to show that at the end. Okay. The bottom line is how you cover your hair is really your own business, you and your husband and your rabbi, like you guys figure it out, whatever you want to do, but it is somewhat determined by our community. So this is just on a side note, choose your community wisely, right? You want to choose a community where you feel comfortable, where you're not going to feel judged, right? Okay, so, but how you do it is really more of a personal decision that the woman makes herself and a discussion with her husband. On a total side note, I think on like maybe my second date with my husband, I said, I was back from 9 months at Neve and I said to him, do you want your wife to cover her hair? Now, there was only one right answer here. If he said, yeah, of course, I'd be like, sexist, this is not your mitzvah, don't tell me what to do. If he had said, no, I don't really care, I would have been like, okay, you're not even religious. Okay, so there was only one right answer. And Hashem gave him a brainwave that he said it. He said, I think that's her decision. And I was like, yes. Check, please. Okay. So there was only one right answer in my mind. The funny part is, of course, you know, now obviously he feels very strongly about it and he's so appreciative that I do it. And by the way, it makes a huge difference when your husband is on board. I have a friend whose husband was so not into it. Like his connotations with hair covering, as were mine, by the way, was basically cancer, unfortunately. Like that's, from a secular Jewish perspective, that's literally the only thing you know as far as like wigs and like scarves. It's like, God forbid, when someone's sick. So he was totally not into it, especially wigs. And so she just wore these cute little hats all the time. Kudos to her. Like, I don't think I could do this mitzvah if my husband was not into it. And for like 15 years, she did this. Like she would even match the hat to her wedding outfit. Like it was really crazy. And then finally he just gave in and she got herself a wig and that's what she wears now. But it took a long time and I really give her a lot of credit because it's very hard if your husband's not on board. Okay. So we said already, the Torah law is you must, when you're out in public, there must be something on your head when you're married. As far as dat Yehudit, that's basically according to your community, is going to determine how you do that. Now, where do we need to cover our hair? Okay, so again, I'm not going to go into all the intricacies, but the Gemara, the Talmud talks about 3 different levels. One is totally public, which is called the shuk. Okay, one is semi-private, which was like a courtyard, which kind of people could come in, but it was mostly your own property. It was like a like an alleyway courtyard. And then there was the inner part of your domain where people wouldn't come unannounced, really. It was a mostly entirely private area. So there are different laws based on how public it is, as you can imagine. So semi-public, what's called a kalta, which was some sort of like basket type covering that they wore in those days, was enough in a semi-public place. It was not enough in a full public place. Okay, so going into the shuk, basically when we leave our house, that it needs to be fully covered. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so everyone from, Rashi to Rambam to the Mishnah Brura to most of the Achronim, including Rav Ovadia Yosef, who is was the posek for the Sephardi community, and Rav Moshe Feinstein, who was the posek for the Ashkenazi community in the last generation. They all rule that hair covering in public is a Torah obligation, not a custom or a rabbinic mitzvah, right? This is from the Torah, okay? How much hair should be covered? I'm really going through the halacha very quickly because I want to get to hashkafa. How much hair should be covered is a matter of opinion, but the vast majority of sources say either, right, the Zohar is the mystical work, says that every hair should be covered. That's the most stringent. Down to Rav Moshe seems to have said, although there is some differences of opinion, is exactly what he said, that less than a tefach could be shown. A tefach is basically 2 fingers along the top of your head. So you'll see when I put the scarf on my daughter, there may be a little bit of hair showing at the top, very, very little by the hairline. According to Rav Moshe, that as long as it was less than 2 fingers, that would have been okay to go out in public, okay? And by the way, the payas, right, the temples, this area right here, okay, does not need to be covered according to most opinions because it's not considered part of your hair, it's your temples. It's like it's basically impossible to cover your temples unless the thing covers your ears, right? And the little neck hairs down here, right, like little neck hairs, you know what I'm talking about? Those also are not considered part of the hair of your head. It's considered that you don't have to, according to most opinions, you don't have to cover that either. Okay, so the nape and the temples would be okay to show. But again, the Zohar insists that no hair must be showing at all. Okay. In your own house, when there's no one there but your immediate family or your father, grandfather, son, according to most opinions, brother, you can actually halachically uncover your hair. Some people don't feel comfortable with that. They're sensitized to that. But according to the basic halacha, you are allowed to uncover it in front of those immediate family members. So, I don't know for my parents, because they're not observant yet. So especially for my father, it gives him a lot of pleasure, I think, when I uncover my hair in front of him because, I have awesome hair and he's just like, yeah, there's you, although the truth is 20 some odd years later, he's like, oh, I like that one that you wear that's like this, he has his opinions on my wigs now. It's very funny. Anyway, so, okay. So that's as far as in your house. Okay. There's no requirement to cover your hair in front of your children, father, grandfather, though there are many women who like to be more machmir, which means more stringent on themselves. As I tell all of my students, and those of you who are regulars, you know that I say this all the time, very, very important to know what's halacha, what's Jewish law, what's custom. Dahlia, I can hear you. What's custom, what's extra stringencies, which is chumras. Okay, it's really important to know all those delineations, because if you say to yourself, oh, I can't do that, and meanwhile it's not even halacha, so right, you need to find out what it is. And that's why it's very important to aseh lecha rav, acquire yourself a rabbi that you trust, that knows you, that knows your journey. And on this note, I just want to share a story that I had a couple of friends who were also balei tshuva, like myself, did not grow up religious. And they they said to the rabbi, so I'm going to start covering my hair full time when I get married. And he said, I wouldn't advise that. And they were like, what? The rabbi's telling me not to cover my hair? And he said, I want you to just do Shabbat. Just cover on Shabbos. And don't worry about anything else right now. Why did he say that? Because if we take on too much too quickly, and this is, by the way, a general principle when you're becoming observant. Maybe I'll do another one of these Zooms about the healthy approach to growth, because I have an awesome class on that. But if you take on too much too quickly, guess what happens? You explode. And then you're like, see you later. Been nice knowing you. I'll go back to my secular life. So it's really important to go slow and steady. You know, it's like an athlete who's training for the Olympics. They don't go out there and run 50 miles the first day, right? They slowly add another quarter of a mile every time they train. And then by the end, they're ready for the marathon. So too, we are interested in the marathon. Hashem, God, is interested in the marathon. He's not interested in the sprint. He is not interested in what you're doing tomorrow. He's interested in what you're going to do 30 years from now. And a good rabbi will have that mindset as well. So this rabbi, who is an excellent rabbi, told my friends, I only want you to cover it on Shabbat. Now, of course, many years later, they cover it full time. But it's really, really important to know yourself and what's too much, because you may explode and get resentful. The general rule of thumb is push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, but not so much that you get resentful and upset. Yeah? So that really applies to everything, whether it's Shabbat, kosher, tzniut, hair covering, whatever it is. I did everything in tiny little steps, one at a time. Oh, let's take a half a step back. Okay, 2 more. Okay, another half a step back. That's the way that healthy growth works the best. Okay, the marathon, not the sprint. Okay, so regarding this mitzvah of hair covering, especially since it's so difficult, we don't want to be comparing ourselves to other people. Right? Again, maybe it's easier for your friend. Happens to be, I have awesome hair. So of course, this mitzvah is going to be much harder for me than my friend who had stringy hair, who was so excited to cover her hair because her regular hair was so bad, right? So of course she's going to be excited. I was not excited. And I have extremely thick hair, so it's hard to stuff it under anything as well. So, and my hair had been really my signature. So it was really, really challenging for me. So it's very important to go at your own pace. Do not compare yourself to anyone else, and really get some what's called hadracha, which means guidance on, you know, exactly how quickly or how slowly to do things. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a break from the halacha part, and I'm going to go to what's called hashkafa, which is kind of like the deeper meaning behind a mitzvah. Now, we want to approach this study with humility.
Devorah?
Yes.
Sorry. I just, there was one question that I think somebody had on the chat that I feel like it makes sense to answer. Great. About what are the amount of inches technically that can be shown? Right.
So again, a tefach is basically 2 fingers worth. I think it's, what is that, like 6 centimeters? I don't know. I could get a ruler, but basically 2 fingers, like along the hairline. So again, we're going to show it at the end, but if you're wearing a scarf and like a little bit is showing in the front, according to many opinions, that is okay. There are opinions that every hair should be covered, but if you are at the stage where you're like, you know what, I just need to fulfill the basic halacha, so you would be okay with showing less than a tefach, so less than 2 fingers worth. Okay, good, thank you. Great. Okay, and yes, the mitzvah of covering your hair is only in front of men, according to halacha, Jewish law. So theoretically, right now, I could take this off, and you could all see my awesome hair. Okay, but I'm not going to, because the truth is, once you start covering your hair, it's sort of like walking outside without a shirt. Like, it just kind of feels like something's missing, you know, when you're like, keys, cell phone, okay, so like it just sort of becomes like that, and you develop a sensitivity. Particularly, I feel like when I'm teaching Torah, I want to look like a little bit more dignified and covered and whatever. But certainly if I had like one friend over, I don't know that I would always have my hair covered, you know what I'm saying? And there's certainly no requirement according to halacha. Okay, someone's asked me to clarify this about Rav Moshe. I want you guys to go to this, okay, rabbimanning.com. Listen to the class that's recorded, download the source sheets. He's going to say it much better than me. There is some ambiguity about exactly what Rav Moshe said, but most people quote him as saying that you can show less than a tefach. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, so what's the deal with women having to cover their hair? So as we said, this comes from the Torah. in the explanation of this sota, this woman who didn't act as a married woman should. Okay. Oh, and we said that we want to approach this hashkafic portion from a place of humility, that we're not giving reasons for the mitzvah. It's really important to realize that. I'm going to give you some interesting ideas. It's called the Tameh HaMitzvot, which means the tastes of the mitzvah. It's like a hint to what might have been going on in Hashem's mind when he made this mitzvah, but we're not seeing the whole picture. 3.5 pounds of brain matter in here, Hashem infinite, not going to work, okay? I'm not going to understand everything about Hashem's Torah, but I have a requirement, since Hashem gave me a brain, I have a requirement to use it as best I can. So I'm going to try to understand the mitzvot as best as I can, certainly as a Baal Tshuva, which I know many of you are. You know, most of us would not do the mitzvahs and sign on for this unless we really tried to understand as best we could what we're doing. But we come to a glass ceiling or a cement ceiling beyond which we cannot go, because our intellect, our human intellect will not allow us to fully perceive everything. Okay, so it's really, really important to come to this topic with some humility. So we're not seeing the whole picture here. But what's with hair? If you look at any woman's magazine, right, or any billboard selling anything from Coca-Cola to sports cars to whatever, it's usually a woman with lots of hair and very little clothing. Those two things usually go together, right? Tons of, right? And like teensy weensy, you know, bikini or whatever it is, okay? So there must be something about long hair that is sexy, that's alluring, that's sensual. I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember the Herbal Essences commercial. Remember that? Okay, so that does not happen to me when I take a shower by myself. Okay, but anyway, so there's something about hair that is sexy and alluring and sensual. And it's like, it sort of symbolizes this side of a woman. Okay, so I think we can all agree on that. So the Jewish view is that every part of our body teaches us something, like a spiritual truth. So we have 2 eyes and 2 ears, but only 1 mouth, because we're supposed to see and hear more than we speak. The fact that we have 2 coverings over our tongue, which can do so much damage, so much worse than a gun, is the tongue, right? You can destroy someone with your words. So Hashem made it that there's teeth and lips to hopefully control our tongue so we don't say things that are mean. So what's the physical purpose of hair? What are we supposed to be learning from hair? So there actually is no physical purpose to hair. There are plenty of bald men who do just fine, okay? They're fine. There is no physical purpose to hair. It doesn't do anything particularly to us on our head. However, it's an adornment. It makes us beautiful. That is the purpose of hair. It makes us beautiful, and it's a sensual thing. So fine. Okay, so what? Why do I have to cover it when I get married? Okay, so there are 2 kind of explanations or hints given to why a woman would cover her hair when she gets married. The first is that it's a physical sign that we're married, similar to a wedding ring, right? Even the secular world has that concept. And by the way, in like 18th century Britain and France, the young unmarried women would leave their hair uncovered, and the married women wear the little bonnet. Remember, if you've seen any Jane Austen movies, right? The married women wore that little bonnet, the white bonnet. On a total side note, we went to Pennsylvania Dutch country to visit the Amish. And of course, like, I am like interested in these things. So they had 2 little girls at the Amish farm. One was probably about 12 and one was probably about 14. And they were manning the farm and like selling stuff. And one had a bonnet on and one didn't, right? The 14-year-old had a bonnet and the 12-year-old did not have a bonnet. So I was like, hi, just curious, like, when do you start wearing the bonnet? And she said, oh, like around 13, 14. Puberty. Okay. So interesting. Like, I love cross-cultural stuff. Like, it's so interesting to note that there's this concept with them as well, that like when a girl kind of becomes a woman, right? Now in Judaism, we don't do it when you become a woman. We do it when you're married. Okay. Why do we cover when we're married? Primarily as an extra sign of modesty and restraint, that now that you're a married woman and that all of that sensual energy that was symbolized in your hair needs to be directed at one source, at your husband, okay? So when a woman first experiences sexual intimacy, right? It's her first experience, hopefully. Okay, so then she is the first time that she's really aware of this incredible power inside her. Okay, y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, she is finally first aware, like maybe she was a little bit aware when she was young, but like then now she's like, whoa, I can like wrap him around my pinky in about 0.3 seconds. Okay, like you are suddenly aware of so much power that you have in this arena, in the sensual department. And that's the exact moment when we have to take all that energy and keep a lid on it. Okay. Can anyone in the kitchen please go to another room? Thank you. Working from home, not simple. Okay. So we're going to take all of this energy and just reserve it for our husband. On a total side note, I recognized when I was at Neve, right, which is obviously an all-women seminary. So then I would occasionally go to like a co-ed Shabbos meal, like in the old city. And all of a sudden I was like flipping my hair all over the place. And I was like, this is so weird. I don't remember flipping my hair for the last 3 months because I was around girls. Then I went to a co-ed meal and I was like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this is crazy. Okay, so it's really legit. It's really, really truth, okay? So covering our hair is basically a symbol of restraint. It's so much more for the woman herself than for anyone else. You always know it's there, right? It's kind of like when you went to the prom and you got your hair done, you were sort of like this, right? Like you couldn't be like, you know, go in a convertible and like, you know, you didn't want to, okay? It's kind of that feeling of like restraint. So I always know it's there. It's like a physical reminder to me, I want to behave in the way that a married woman should behave. I'm not going to have that conversation with that guy that comes for Shabbos. I'm going to draw a little bit of boundary. I'm going to be nice and polite, but I'm not going to go over that line and be overly friendly. So this is always a sign on my head for myself that now I'm a married woman, I'm going to behave differently. It encourages emotional fidelity. Okay, what does the expression to let your hair down mean? To let your hair down means to act wild and crazy without any restraints. Isn't that interesting, right? Think of Wonder Woman, okay? Anyone remember her? I mean the original, Linda Carter, okay? So she wore her hair in a bun when she was Diana Prince or whatever, right? She was all like secretarial. She like had her hair in a bun and she was wearing like a suit and she was very proper. Then what happened when she had to go save Steve Trevor from like some kind of Nazi calamity, right? Da-na-na-na-na, right? And then she, all of a sudden she's in a bustier and whoosh, all this hair, right? Now, I don't know exactly why she needed that very small outfit to go beat the Nazis, but okay, moving on. So there was something very, very sensual about her hair, right? It was like part of the whole package. So to let your hair down denotes wild, unrestrained behavior. One of the identifying marks of the hippie movement, right, the 60s, which was the free love era, do whatever you want with whoever you want, whenever you want, was long hair for both men and women, right? It was very symbolic. No rules, no restraint. We're anti-authority. We're going to grow our hair long and who cares if it's washed, right? That was the 60s. What's the first thing that happens to a man when he joins the military? Why? Why does he have to shave his head when he get a crew cut or whatever when he's in the military? Because the military symbolizes restraint, authority. I don't just go onto the battlefield and be like, no, yeah, I don't really like that thing my commander's saying. I think we should go this way. No, you listen to what your commander is telling you, period, the end. So shaving their head is very symbolic of deference to authority and restraint, okay? Moving on. When a woman covers her hair after a marriage, she is making a statement to herself and to others that she lives with a discipline, for her life has now taken on an added dimension. She has to establish a Bayit Na'aman B'Yisrael, which means a genuine Jewish home, a faithful Jewish home, and that requires all of the gifts that she has as a woman focused inside. And that doesn't mean she can't work outside the home. It means her essence is focused on what's going on inside my home. So some of this perception is obviously filtered down to other nations, right? The Queen of England never goes out without either her awesome diamond tiara or a gorgeous hat that like totally matches her outfit, right? So there's something about royalty that, you know, you cover your head. By the way, I believe it was President Kennedy who was the first president who did not go out without a hat on his head. Before President Kennedy, every man and woman, you would never consider leaving the house without a hat on your head because it was considered like you left some clothing off, like you're not dressed. It's not dignified to go out of the house that way. I have an amazing photograph from GQ magazine of like a sporting event, like a football game or something, or baseball game from like 1940 or something like that. It looks like shul. Remember shul, by the way? Right? It looks like shul. All the men were wearing a suit, tie, and a fedora. It mamish looks like an Orthodox shul. And it was like a football game. Okay, so that's how men dressed. What do you mean? It's like, that's dignified. And women also. Unfortunately, in my opinion, unfortunately, our society has gotten a little bit degenerated now, like casual Fridays every day. And no one gets dressed up, even when you go to the opera or the ballet, right? Everyone's casual. So there was something always on her head. Obviously, no woman would attend an audience with the Pope unless she would cover her, you know, she would always cover her hair if you're going to go see the Pope. So there's something going on here. Interestingly, Chava's hair, Chava Eve, her hair was tightly braided when she was created, apparently. And the sources tell us that after the sin, her hair became like disheveled and unbraided. And it was only then that it needed to be covered. So it's kind of also a symbol of sort of this misuse of power, right? We just talked about the power that a woman has over a man. She misused that power and got her husband to sin. Okay, it was also his fault, don't worry. Okay, it was mainly his fault actually. But she really misused her power, right? She could have used it properly and she used it improperly. So, okay, moving on, and don't worry, I'm gonna get to the questions. Okay, it's a big blessing that we have so many great options to cover our hair. By the way, like, you know, in our grandmother's generations, it's not a wonder that barely anyone did this mitzvah because your choices were basically like a kerchief where you looked like babushka, like grandma, or, you know, wearing some horsehair wig that looked like a horsehair. Okay, so like there were not so many attractive options. Now we're so lucky that there's like a million different beautiful ways to keep this mitzvah, depending on your own personal taste and style and custom and community. And it's just, we're very, very lucky. So it's just important to, you know, to remember that as well. The Gemara, the Talmud, and the Zohar, which is the main work of Kabbalah, the mystical sources, teach us that a woman who is careful with hair covering is rewarded with blessings in this world and the next. Health, parnasa, which is livelihood, financial livelihood, and abundant nachas, that's joy and pride from her children and her grandchildren. Okay, now remember, every step in the right direction is precious to God. You know, please don't take this as a, you know, as a, y'all go out as soon as you're married and, you know, okay, that's not what I'm saying. Everyone needs to grow at their own pace. But I think a woman could, mechazek herself, could strengthen herself by remembering the blessings that she's bringing into her home and to her children and to her family when she keeps this mitzvah. Okay. So this is just a cute vignette that I heard about like someone on the Yankees or the Giants or whatever. Someone was interviewing him and said, you know, isn't it hot wearing that helmet? Like, you know, you're hot, you're sweaty, it's uncomfortable. And he said, are you kidding? When I put on this helmet, I feel like it's a crown. It's such a privilege. And it reminds me I'm part of the major leagues. So when we cover our head as a woman, it really shows like I'm on God's team, right? We don't have a yarmulke. We don't have a kippah. A religious man always has this mark on the top of his head, right? This like symbol, I'm a religious man. And maybe he wears tzitzis hanging out also. So everyone spots him, which is, by the way, a blessing and a curse. It means you can't sit down while the pregnant lady is standing up in the subway, right? It causes you to be a better person, you know, it forces you to kind of up your game because people are looking at you and saying that guy's Orthodox. We don't have that same thing. And covering our head is really our yarmulke. It's a form of Jewish pride. It attaches us to a certain segment of the Jewish population, right? I heard one of the beautiful stories in that book was a woman who, she went to some conference for work and it was like mostly non-Jews and whatever. And across the room, she spotted another sheitel, another wig. Like out of like 100 people in the room, she spotted a sheitel over there and they shared a look, like we know each other kind of, right? And then they ended up like having like a meal together and whatever. And they just like knew so much about each other just because they shared this, which is, I find that myself as well when I'm in like a very random, you know, non-Jewish environment. And then I see someone else covering their hair. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like secret club. Okay. So, marriage is referred to as kedushin in Hebrew, which really means separation. So when you get married, you make a lot of separations. There are parts of your inner world that you're not going to share with anyone else besides your husband. There's parts of your physical body that you're going to only share with your husband, including your hair. We're not supposed to, you know, be like flirty, God forbid, or talk excessively with other men. We want to keep our relationship with our husband as private as possible. There's this whole like circle of intimacy that's created, and covering one's hair fits into that rubric, where when a woman covers her hair, it's like her real hair is this special, intimate thing that only is shared between her and her husband. And that's why I said it's so much harder if your husband isn't on board. Okay, by the way, the word tzniut, which we badly translate as modesty, but I really prefer to call it dignity or internality, focus on the internal, comes from the word sena, which means privacy, right? So the whole rubric of modesty really is about privacy. Not everyone needs to see everything. Why would I want everyone to see everything? Why would I want men gawking at me? I'm married, for gosh sakes, right? So hair covering, though it is a separate mitzvah from modesty, from, you know, the laws of dress, for instance, it kind of overlaps with modesty, meaning a woman could be covering her hair according to halacha, meaning all her hair is covered, but if she's wearing, I call it the Kim Kardashian sheitel, okay, like, whoosh, you know what I mean? Like the first one I tried on was like that. And I was like, I should be dancing on tables somewhere with this thing. Like, this is just like not okay, right? So a wig that is so provocative and sexy and not tzniut and eye-catching is unfortunately not fulfilling the spirit of this law. And by the way, this is another general principle in Judaism. There's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So there's certain laws of Shabbos, right? And then there's the spirit of Shabbos. Like you could officially set your timer for your TV to go on and you wouldn't be violating a law of Shabbos, but it's not Shabbostic. Like, I don't want to be watching Netflix on Shabbos, right? Like, it's not in the spirit of Shabbos. So too with hair covering. There's the letter of the law, which is cover your hair. And then there's the spirit of the law, which is, I don't want to be provocative. Much more so now that I'm married. Even before, I didn't want to be provocative. I wanted to be pretty and refined and put together and dignified and gorgeous, but not sexy and alluring and provocative. So if my wig is sexy, alluring, and provocative, I've got a problem. And I have to look inside myself and say, is there a way that I could grow in this mitzvah? Now, very important, we never judge another Jew. So when I see a woman wearing a Kim Kardashian sheitel, I say to myself, this is probably the only way that this woman can cover her hair, and she's doing the mitzvah. Good for her. There are unfortunately many women, sometimes they attend my hair covering classes and start a barrage of criticism of what I'm saying. But since you're all muted, I don't have to deal with that. Okay, so there are some women who will judge other women based on what they are wearing on their head and say to themselves, ugh, they're not keeping the mitzvah. Psst, what's she wearing? Okay, note to self. God hates one character trait more than any other trait. You know what it's called? Gaiva, which means arrogance. when we judge another Jew and we say, I'm doing this better and that person is not, trust me, they're not throwing a parade for you in heaven. It's very dangerous for yourself. We're never allowed to judge anyone, it says in Pirkei Avos, until we are in their shoes, which is when? Never. Okay, so moving on. So, I say to myself, maybe this is the only way that this person can cover their hair. I can tell you honestly for myself, if wigs were outlawed, there is zero chance I'd be keeping this mitzvah. I'm telling you really honestly. Really, really honestly. I don't know why I'm recording this, but still have to marry off kids. Okay, but I don't think that I would be capable of doing this mitzvah if I were not allowed to wear a wig. And my rabbi pointed out that the countries in pre-war Europe where the rabbis assered wigs, where they said wigs are not an acceptable way to cover your hair, in droves, the women stopped doing this mitzvah. And the countries where the rabbis said it's okay to cover your hair with a wig, the women in general kept covering their hair. And I know for sure in America, and certainly Rav Moshe and the Lubavitcher Rebbe ruled this way, that it's not realistic to think that the average woman is going to be able to cover her hair only with a scarf. So I want to just read this. I don't remember where I got this. I'm sorry, because I've compiled so much information, but someone wrote this that I respect. The Lubavitcher Rebbe held that shaitels are definitely lechachila, which means ideal, not what's called b'diavad, which means, okay, it's not so great, but okay. He said it's lechachila. It's even preferable in his mind. Whereas Rav Avadia Yosef, from my understanding, he was talking about his clientele in Israel, but many Sephardi Jews in America also hold by this, that tichels and hats and scarves were definitely better. Okay, so you have your pick. This is the only reason I'm happy to be Ashkenazi. Most times I'd rather be Sephardi. Okay, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Chaim Pinkas Scheinberg's wife, wore a sheitel. And I had a very good conversation years ago with my friend and neighbor, Rebbetzin Bashi Twersky, the head of the Hadar Seminary, which Hadar is like, on the spectrum of seminaries, extraordinarily right-wing, okay? So I asked her, why is it okay to cover with a wig, even if you look better or more beautiful with a wig on? She said very simply, the law says a married woman must cover her hair. It doesn't say with what. There is no mitzvah to be unattractive. Adarabba, that means quite the contrary. Abbas Melech, which means the daughter of the king, meaning Hashem, has a mitzvah to be attractive and put together, for she is truly the daughter of the king. She always wore a sheitel to go out of the house and told me she preferred it because she felt she got the most coverage and didn't have to worry about it slipping back, which is also my thing. When I have very slippery hair, even with the band and the grip and all that, it slips off my head to a degree that the sheitel does not move. As a Baal Tshuva, I think we all struggled with this question of why covering hair with hair and looking great was okay, but she really put my mind at ease about it. And obviously many, if not most of the Gedolim's wives had wigs on. People tend to get very entrenched in their own position, and it's just important you follow your Rav, you make your decision with your Rav, and you don't worry about other people. Okay, and we definitely never want to judge other people. All this bearing all this in mind, there are still days where it's very hard for me to do this mitzvah. Usually when I get my hair cut and it looks like awesome, and the lady's like, oh, why you cover? It looks so good. Like, why you stuff that hat on? Okay, wrong accent, but whatever. So I once had one of these days where I was like in tears. I was newly married and I was in tears. And my husband said to me, do you have any role models, any female role models that you aspire to be like, that you want to be like, who don't cover their hair? And other than my mother, I don't have anyone. They all cover their hair. Rebbetzin Tehila Yeager, who I want to be when I grow up. Right? Like, Rebbetzin Young Rice, like all these amazing, amazing women who were like crazy, amazing speakers, but also really devoted to their family. Like they all wore a wig. They all covered their hair. So that was like such a good point. And I remember that now when I'm having a hard day, I think to myself, the woman that I want to be covers her hair. So after all the halachic discussions and all the ins and outs, at the end of the day, who I want to be is a woman who covers her hair. So that gets me through the days that are difficult. And I thought I would share that with you. On another note, and this shouldn't be the case, but it is, okay? For better or for worse, the way that you view a couple's religious standing is largely based on how the woman is dressed and what she's wearing on her head. There's nothing to say about this. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. It just is. Like, all the men look basically the same, more or less, like on a weekday, or like, let's say on Shabbos, let's put on Shabbos, they're all wearing a white shirt, a suit, and a tie. Okay, a hat, no hat, but whatever, you can't really tell. He could be like not keeping Shabbos or like Hasidish, and you're not even really sure. But you look at the woman and you're like, oh, I totally know the whole picture. Now, I don't know that it should be this way, but it just is this way. And we tend to judge by externals, and we like figure people out based on like what they look like. It just is. I look at it as a big responsibility in a good way. Okay, next story. I was very, very newly married. And as I told you, I started covering my hair when I first got married with a wig primarily. But, you know, then I'd wear like a baseball cap with stuff hanging out, like, which I wouldn't do today. It was Shabbos, and I was wearing my wig, and I was still struggling a lot with the mitzvah of tzniut, of dress. And I was definitely pushing the envelope a little bit. And a Kiruv Rebbitzin, unfortunately, came up to me in public in front of my husband and other people. Okay, this is such a big Avera, sin. When you embarrass someone in public, it's, according to Jewish sources, the same as murdering them. And she said to me, you're gonna cover your hair with a wig and wear that outfit? Don't you think that's hypocritical? Okay. So I cried the rest of Shabbos. And then my new husband said to me, I think you should call her. First of all, what if she says that to someone else? Like, I'm already in. I'm not leaving Yiddishkeit because some lady opens her mouth and says the wrong thing. Like, I'm a hook, line, and sinker. I love Hashem and I love the Torah. But what if it was a newbie? Like, that comment, see you later, right? So he said, and it was true, I should call her. And plus, she might not realize. Okay, so I hate conflict. I'm like averse to conflict. So I'm like sweating, right? But I called her Motzi Shabbos and I said, you know, you may not realize, but this is my hardest mitzvah, is like dress, you know, and hair covering. These are my hardest mitzvahs. And it's like a miracle that I even have like fabric on me. And like, it really was hurtful when you said that, because I'm struggling so hard to do the right thing. Okay, now, of course, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. I forgive her. It's been 20 years. Okay, but anyway, I give over this story because I wouldn't want anyone in this group to ever have that experience. But if you do have that experience, just realize that people are human. Even though we have the teeth and the lips, some people just, it's like word vomit. Like they couldn't control what they were saying, and it just came out. And it was wrong that she said that to me. And, you know, we would never want to do that to anyone else, right? Okay. So next few points, and then we're going to do our fashion show. And I'm going to look at the questions also. Okay, so I just want to address the issue of the hair covering falling, like overlapping with modesty. Right? So the laws of tzniut are supposed to help us to focus inward. That's the idea. Instead of trying to get other people's approval for our externals, by the way, it's not tzniut for a man to wear Ferragamo shoes and a big Rolex watch and a ton of cologne either. Okay? Tzniut is for men and women, and it's not just about clothing, right? We're supposed to be understated. The Chazal tell us, do much, say little. I don't need to brag about myself, say how much money I make, come into a room and it's a big parade. You just do what you're supposed to do, make the world a better place, and not everyone needs to know about it, okay? So that is really the definition of tzniut, focusing on who I am inside and developing that, not being so focused on my outside. So when a woman covers her hair, and frankly her body as well, it really encourages us to focus on our insides. And I'm just speaking for myself here. When I was wearing like small pieces of fabric, it's very hard not to focus on your body because it's coming out all over the place, right? Like, did I work out my abs enough today? Like, you know, am I like, you know what I mean? Like you're like tucking everything in, and is it falling out somewhere? And you're very aware of your body. Once you start covering it, I was sort of like liberated. Really, I was freed up to focus on my insides. And, you know, I've been working on my insides for 25 years. I'm getting better. Okay. But it made me lazy because I got so much validation for the outside. Why bother working on the inside? Okay. So covering our hair is supposed to be under that rubric of like, you know, I'm not like so focused on my hair, right? There was a beautiful story in here where she talks about from like an early age, you know, I have two girls who were bald until like 2 years old. So like with the tiny little wisp of hair that was coming out, I stuck one of those Velcro bows on so people would know she was a girl, you know, like so at a very young age, we stick bows in our baby's hair. Then what happens when you're a teen girl? Oh my gosh, the amount of time I spent on my hair, like I could have written like an entire Talmud by now. I used to get up before dawn in high school. I was like the era, I'm going to date myself here, but it was the 80s. Like, there's a lot of hairspray. Okay. So like, I was like, you know, like permed and sprayed. And I spent like an hour and a half on my hair. Why? I have no idea. Okay. Then, you know, then we're single, right? And we're like flipping our hair all over and like looking all luscious, you know, and then we get married and it's like, whoop, what do I do now? Now it's supposed to all be reserved for my husband. So it's not like it's overnight, you know, easy, but there's a lot of really special things about this. So as we said, once she first experiences all of this power, right, after her wedding night, she wants to take all of that energy and that sensuality and not have it be going out in a million directions. We want to literally put a lid on it, and like a laser, it goes towards our husband. So hair, by the way, is compared to the Yetzer Hara in Jewish sources, which is like the evil inclination. Esav, right? Esau was born hairy, and he really symbolizes the Yetzer Hara. And we have hair growing on the places of our body that have the most potential to cause harm. So, you know, and to be misused, right? The areas of our body that we need the most self-control, right? The brain, we want to control our thoughts. The mouth, for a man, we want to control our speech. And our private area, where we want to control our desires. So the Yetzer Hara really represents the primary drives we have as human beings, and the Torah provides the structure to direct those drives towards purpose and meaning. So the hair of a woman, as a married woman, it's representative of the most powerful aspect of her physicality, right? Her sexuality. Once this switch is activated and she understands that power, she covers her hair to constantly remind herself of her need to set clear boundaries and keep this powerful aspect of herself restrained and controlled. Okay. And by the way, also, it's not halacha, but there are women who are more particular about covering their hair during the times of the month when they're not permitted to be physical with their husband. So now this makes sense, because during that time when she and her husband are meant to separate physically, sexually, she is taking that hair, which is representative of that sexuality, and covering it. Again, not every woman does that, but women who are particular to do that, it makes sense logically based on what we're saying. So through the mitzvah of covering her hair, a married Jewish woman recognizes the power she possesses as a woman and the importance and beauty of that energy within the framework of her marriage. Upon leaving the privacy of her home, she physically covers and restrains her hair, which reminds her that she must restrain the most intimate aspects of her femininity and direct these energies inward towards her husband, you know, between her husband and herself. It is with this awareness that she can help to cultivate a deeply fulfilling, exclusive relationship with her husband. Okay, so let me just make sure I got to most stuff. We didn't get to everything, but Rabbi Sauer, who was Rosh Kol of YU in LA, says that the mitzvah of hair covering is really the hallmark of the Jewish woman, right? Where the yarmulke is to a man, a symbol of yirat shamayim, fear of heaven, the hair covering is for the Jewish woman. As the yarmulke symbolizes humility, So a married woman's hair covering symbolizes modesty and humility, an essential aspect of the role of the Jewish woman. So the Torah, again, just to highlight this, does not want us to be unattractive or ugly. It wants us to be beautiful and dignified, but not provocative. Okay, so okay. By the way, Rav Shimon Schwab said women are not obligated in the mitzvah tefillin because they wear their tefillin throughout all the hours of the day. I thought that was so cute. I mean, not cute, but you know. Okay, so, and this is Rav Falk, who I don't usually quote, by the way, but while her head covering should not be overly flamboyant and flashy, neither should it be drab and somber. Chazal, the rabbis, teach that a wife should always make an effort to be appealing to her husband. And number two, it would give the impression that Yiddishkeit is restrictive, somber, and gloomy, right? Which it is not, okay? So even our head covering needs to be thought out, right? It's not supposed to be drab or schleppy or frumpy, and it's not supposed to be overly flamboyant and flashy either, okay? So I'm gonna look at some questions here and just make sure that we got to, whoa, okay. Is someone talking to me? Okay, before questions, we're gonna do the fashion show because my teenage girl has to go do something for her like 12th grade graduation thing. Okay, so girls, come. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce you to my girls. My oldest is turning 20 this summer. She's back from seminary a year. And then I have a 12th grader and they're gonna model things for us. Okay, when you get some stuff. Yeah, grab some stuff. Yeah, everything's over here. Yeah, so you put the tuckle on because you looked great. What? Okay, whatever. Oh, sorry. I was just corrected. It's called a snood, not a tuckle. Okay.
Okay, you have to do it for me because I don't know how yet.
Okay, so this is Dahlia. Dahlia is almost 20.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, first of all, this invention, okay, the guy who made this is going straight to heaven, okay? So this is a wig grip. When I first started covering my hair, there was no such thing. And therefore I had like clips like burrowed into my brain, which was like not comfortable. And I started losing my hair. By the way, on a side note, my hair is healthier and more thick and gorgeous than it ever was before I covered my hair. So people who say that it ruins your hair, it's not true, okay? But anyway, so this is a wig grip. It's basically a velvet, can you see? It's a velvet headband and it has Velcro at the end. Okay, come.
Wait, Kayla's going first.
Oh, Kayla's going first? Oh, sorry, Kayla's going first. Come, Kayla. Okay, so Kayla, this is Kayla. She's my 12th grader. Okay, so this is a snood. It's made of like crochet, sort of velvety fabric. Okay, now I'm gonna fix it a little bit here. This would be okay for a tefach. Okay, not everyone would uncover this much. Okay, but that would be okay according to Rav Moshe. This is the temple, which we said already, you do not have to halachically cover. But like right here, you know, there's less than 2 fingers and that would be okay. And most of the religious women you would see, the Ashkenazi women who wear these things, this is basically how they look, unless they want the helmet look. Okay, which, you know, we try not to do. Okay, so can I put one more thing? Can you put the little beanie, the hat beanie thing on? And give me the other one also. Yeah. Okay, so, because I want to just show them to it.
Imagine like a full.
Yeah, like a fall. Oh. With your hair out. So in the winter, I wear a lot of those like pom-pom hat, beanie hat thingies, either with no hair coming out or with a fall. Okay, so Kayla's modeling this. This is my favorite hat, actually. Here, come in front of me. Okay, so if you were married, what you would do is her hair would be a fall. What?
Why do you have it on mirror?
Okay, so the hair coming out would be like a fall, right? Which is kind of like a half sheitel, a half wig, and then you would have your hat on and it would be very cute. Where's the other hat? I just want to show them. Okay, so Kayla is dismissed because she has to run to an activity. Okay, here's another beanie hat. It has like glitter, you know, it's like really cute. You can make this a very cute accessory. I see there's a whole family watching here. I love it. Okay, so now we're gonna do Dahlia. Okay, so here's the wig grip, right? So I have to think about how this works because I usually do it myself. Okay, so I think it goes like this. Okay, so it basically goes right around your head, okay, at the hairline. Okay, and it's just, it provides like a grip. So I literally have my sheitel sitting on top of this, no clips, no combs, no nothing. And it's not going anywhere. I've been on roller coasters with this thing. Okay, so it just literally sits on top of this velvet grip that provides the, what's that called? Like friction. So it doesn't move anywhere. So this is obviously a million times more comfortable than clips and combs, right? So I just literally sit it on top. I wear this on at the bar mitzvah, no clips, no combs, okay? Now we're gonna take this, and Rebecca's gonna forgive me. I'm not gonna do anything fancy, okay? But I'm gonna take these things. I wear this most of the summer when I'm not like teaching a class or Shabbos, when it's a regular weekday. In the summer, you can see how, look, you can see me through it. It's like so light and see-through that when I wear this, I literally feel like I'm wearing nothing on my head. So it's very comfortable, you know, when it's hot. So basically it's a triangle. Sorry, we have to, okay, we're gonna move it up here. Okay, so it's a, here's, you want, okay, fine, yeah, good. Okay, so it's a triangle, and we're just gonna literally put it down here. Okay, then, here, turn around. Then what I do, again, I do nothing fancy, okay? I think I'm not even gonna be able to do this on someone else. Then I literally just like tie, you know, a little knot here. And Dolly actually has more hair than me, so it's better. And then I literally just like wrap it around one way and the other way, and it becomes like a bun. Can you hear what I'm saying? Yeah? Can you hear me? Okay, it becomes like a bun. Let's see.
Is that a hair sticking it?
No, ooh, I did a good job. Well, all right, all we need is the husband, okay? So, so she looks awesome. So I wear these literally like all summer long. It's so, here, look to the side. It's so like comfortable. You have so, she has so much hair that you don't, she doesn't even need one of those volumizer things because she has so much hair there. So it just looks beautiful, and it's literally so light. Like I really,
it's very comfortable.
Yeah, I forget that it's there, honestly, because it's so light. So did I bring anything else? Oh.
Well, I can't wear Wonder Wig.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put it on you. Okay, so for the gym, I literally just put on a regular bandana. You know, like I don't even wear the pre-tied ones. I just get a regular bandana and I just, you know, tie it around my head, right? Tie it around my head. You know, she has more hair than me, but I'm able to tuck all my hair in, you know, so that it's like a pre-tied bandana. And that's how I work out, because I can't work out. Like I'm not one of these people who's going to work out with like a whole contraption on. This is the Wonder Wig. So this is basically, this is a fantastic invention. Okay, so this is basically like a wig that's sewn kind of like a circle. And so you basically wear it with like a headband. I wear this also all summer. You'll see pictures on Facebook, either in like a messy bun on the top of my head or like a pony. So it's sewn in a particular way that makes it basically, you can't wear this by itself because you see it has no hair in the front, right? So you can't wear this by itself, and you really can't wear it down. It looks a little weird. But I wear it in like a messy bun, like on the top of my head or on the bottom of my head. And I wear that like all summer, and it's super comfortable and cool, and it's off my neck and whatever. Okay, so that was the fashion show. I'm glad I convinced them to do that. Okay, and you know, by the way, as far as like my wigs go, I have this longer one, which is, you know, for more fancy occasions, like, you know, a bar mitzvah, Shabbos, whatever. And then I have a shorter one that's like to my shoulders, that's a little bit more casual and not as like whatever, a big deal. And that I wear just, you know, on a regular basis. Trying to think, that's pretty much the extent of what I do. Okay, let's see if I can answer some questions here. What are the halachic arguments against covering your hair? What does that mean? There are many modern Orthodox women that don't wear wigs and don't completely cover their hair either. Oh, so those are two different questions. The first question is, what are the halachic arguments against covering your hair? I have heard a rabbi who, you know, I wouldn't call so legitimate, but he felt that hair covering was not a mitzvah from the Torah, and that was just based on society. And since society no longer covers their head, like I told you, since President Kennedy, so we also don't need to do that. Okay, so obviously, you know, if you look around the Orthodox world, there's very few people who would agree with him. You know, and again, I just go back to that thing my husband said, look at your role models. What do your role models do? That's what I go back to. Whether how much to cover, right? In the modern Orthodox world, there are women who will show more hair. You know, I'm not going to weigh in on that. You know, I hold by Rav Moshe. That seems to be the majority halachic opinion, that you can show only a tefach and not more. But again, we're not here to judge. So maybe this person, that's the best way they can cover their hair. Great. Judaism's not all or nothing. It's not like you wear a burqa or are naked. Like there's like a whole, you know, there's a whole process. There's a whole spectrum. Same with hair covering, Shabbos, kosher, every mitzvah. It's like you know, life's a journey. And again, we're interested in the marathon, not the sprint. Maybe you'll never get to the end. That's okay. And Hashem is not comparing us to anyone else. Most of us on this call didn't grow up religious. Hello, the last person that covered her hair in my family was probably like 250 years ago, at best. I'm really not kidding. So you think Hashem's going to be like cracking the whip on me? No, of course not. It's like they're throwing a party upstairs for what I'm doing. Okay. Have you ever had a moment when you were happy or relieved you cover your hair? Only 3-day Yom Tov. That's it. Okay. Are women allowed to stay one-on-one with rabbis? You're not allowed to be in yichud. This is totally off topic. You're not allowed to be in yichud, which means in a locked room or seclusion with any man that you're not married to. So if a rabbi meets with you, this is a very important question. If a rabbi meets with you, the door should be open, or someone should always be like around, ready to walk in. That's a really important question, actually, because we have a lot of Balei Tshuva girls here who may not know what is appropriate or inappropriate behavior for a rabbi. Okay, so if you are concerned or confused, please be in touch with me privately. What's the difference between a fall and a sheitel? Okay, so a fall, basically, like the Wonder Wig, will have this line here so that you can't wear it by itself. You would need a hat or a headband or something, or, you know, something to cover up that seam. That's a fall. So whereas a full sheitel, you see, I have like side bangs. So I'm not pulling out any of my own hair. This is just sitting on top of my hair. By the way, when I first got married, I did pull out my own hair because I was like very machbid, which means particular, that I wanted a very good hairline. And I didn't want anyone to know I was covering my hair. I wanted to look exactly like my hair. So I would take out a little bit and pull it over, which according to most opinions is halachically not okay. But that's what I did. And you know what? I did it for about 4 years. And then we moved to Passaic, New Jersey. And I was like, I don't think that's going to really fly here. So I went back to my sheitel macher, which is the wig lady. Okay. And I had her cut some more layers in so that I felt more comfortable with the hairline. This one is not even as good as my other one, but happens to be, I'm very particular about hairline because I don't want it to look wiggy. And the hairline is two things make you look wiggy. The hairline, if it's bad, and also if you have too much of your natural hair, you get a bump right here under the wig because you have so much hair stuffed in. Happens to be my natural hair, I cut shorter for that reason, because I have very, very thick hair, and there's just no way I would be able to stuff it up into a wig without a bump otherwise. And I think I look cute anyway, so it's okay. And so does my husband. So that's a fall. A fall is a sheitel without the hairline. Okay, you answered that. Great. There are mixed opinions on if a woman needs to cover at home. Okay, great. It is not halacha in your own home, but some women like to be extra stringent on themselves and cover in their own home. And it's true that like now that my kids are older, there's always like someone running in the house and like whatever, friends. And, you know, so the truth is my hair is mostly covered day to day now, but I didn't start off that way. And I needed to not start off that way, if you know what I mean. How about if you're wearing a hat with only the top of your head not showing? Right, so meaning a hat with your own hair coming out. So again, Rav Moshe and really the vast majority of the poskim say that either all the hair has to be covered or less than a tefach, which would be very, very little at the base of your neck. When I first got married, I wore those cute like fancy hats that like black ladies wear, like, you know, like with like out of Titanic, you know what I mean? Like those gorgeous hats. And I had like a tiny bit of my hair, you know, coming out the bottom, which probably was halachically, you know, debatable, not too bad. But I wouldn't do that today. So, you know, again, it's a growth process, and better something than nothing. That's what I keep trying to tell you guys. Better to put a hat on your head and have all your hair coming out than nothing. Obviously, that's better. We just went through the Torah source, okay? Okay, fine, right. It gets complicated with family members visiting, in-laws in particular, right? If your in-laws are always dropping by, if you're Russian, I'm just kidding. If your in-laws are always dropping by, so then you're like on, off, right? So I leave a little beanie by the door. It's on a hook right by the door of my house. And I can literally, like the winter hat, and I literally just whoosh, and answer the door. You know, if the exterminator comes, whatever, you know, I can just throw that on in a second. But yeah, it would be nice for people who are visiting to let you know that they're coming, so that you aren't in a situation that you're uncomfortable with. Stepson, I do not know the answer to that. I think you would probably need to cover in front of your stepson, but I'm not a rabbi. How about in front of friends and other women? No, as we said, according to halacha, you do not have to. Some people are more sensitive and particular about that. Is there a requirement to have hair? No, because in certain Hasidic communities, they shave it. So it's definitely not a halachic requirement to have hair. That being said, the vast majority of Ashkenazi poskim, which means rabbis who rule on subjects, are not in favor of a woman shaving her head, because we're meant to look beautiful for our husband. And by the way, on a side note, it's really important that you take care of your natural hair. Just because you're covering your hair does not mean that your natural hair should be shvach, as they say, junk, right? I get a real haircut. You know, I don't need to dye anything yet, but when the time comes, maybe, I don't know. But I take care of it. I condition it. I make sure it's healthy. And as I said, I think it's healthier now because I'm not blow drying, just perming, you know, all that stuff that I used to do. It doesn't see the sun really. So, you know, it's not getting like bleached out, right? It's healthier actually. Does it need to be covered when davening and or saying a bracha when alone? Okay, so check your LOR about that. From my understanding, you do not need to cover your hair when you are saying a bracha, but most women when they're davening would cover their hair. Like I certainly cover my hair when I daven, but when I say a bracha, not always. What about, and by the way, in the mikvah, you're saying a blessing, right? Most women do not cover their hair there, right? There is a little pile of washcloths that some women will grab and put on top of their head, but it's not required. What about if a woman has cancer, God forbid, and she is bald or loses her hair for another reason? Does she have to still cover her bald head? That's such a good question. Yeah, I think so, because it's the rosh. If you look at the Torah source, it says the rosh, which means head. So with or without hair. That's so interesting though, because hair is what we're talking about. Should never happen to anyone. What are the amount of inches technically that can be shown? Okay, we already talked about that. When people wear a fall pulled back. Okay, right. So again, we're not judging anyone else, but I'm telling you less than a tefach, which is less than 2 fingers. Any recommendations for a rabbi and mentor? You know, speak to me privately, because I do have, I mean, and certainly anyone at Olami, you know, is great. Depending on your city, I could recommend someone who is like the head of the kollel, or, you know, a rabbi there, depending on your city. Does the tefach count at the bottom of your hair as well? Right, yes. As far as I know, yes. So if it was covered completely up here and there was a tiny bit coming down, that would be considered, according to what I know, okay. But again, that's very little. Tefach is very little. How do you suggest we discuss with men we are dating our fears about hair covering, especially as a BT who keeps meeting FFBs? Does everyone know what that means? FFB is a from birth, someone who grew up religious. They may want someone to cover their hair fully, full-time right away. I would want to be able to effectively communicate about my fears and my growth plan and not scare him away by seeming unwilling to perform this mitzvah. So, yeah, you know, that's why I'm very happy that I was able to marry someone who also comes from a similar background to me, and we were able to grow together. And like I said, his answer was the only answer that would have worked for me. And I know a lot of women who feel that way. Like, don't tell me what to do, but then again, you should care, you know, so it's like this dicey thing. So I think that, you know, it is something you probably want to talk about fairly early on when you're talking about other things like your Shabbat observance, kosher, tzniut, chagim, holidays, whatever, like what, you know, what's he doing, what you're doing, does your picture of life the way you want it to look match his, right? That's what, you know, as a dating coach, I'm telling you, you do need to talk about these things, because I know couples, for whatever reason, it's more common in the Sephardi world, but I know couples where the woman is covering her hair with a scarf and the man is not keeping Shabbos. Aww. Okay, this would never, like, just doesn't happen in the Ashkenazi world. Like, why would you marry someone so far off? But amongst our students who are mostly Sephardi, this is quite common because they're like already traditional. So then it's a question of like, am I going to go farther than traditional or not? And sometimes the woman becomes more religious and the husband is not. And so then you have a bad dynamic. So this is definitely worth talking about early on. Also, I don't think it's worth saying he's not for me if he has trouble getting on board with a growth plan rather than doing it right away. By the way, also, don't fall for just talking, ladies, okay? Doing, okay? If you're dating a guy and he says, yeah, when I'm married, I want to fill in the blank, keep Shabbat, kosher, get a rabbi, go to shul. Great, let's start today, okay? None of this talk. What are you doing now? Wait, great, you want to go in that direction? Let's go in that direction together, right? You're going to save yourself a lot of pain. How is your own hair different from wearing a wig? It's attached to your head. So there's something about hair that's attached to your head that is sensual, and hair that's not attached to your head is a little bit ew. Okay, like it's just not. Like, can you imagine someone going, oh, no, like it doesn't work. So that's where the difference is. When it's attached to your head, it still has this life to it, this vibrancy, this like sensuality. And when it's not attached to your head and it's someone else's hair, it just doesn't. I always joke that my husband's married to 25 different women because all of my looks are so different. I once got a pony sheitel that was made from Asian hair. So when we would go out and see a Chinese lady, he'd be like, there's your hair. Like it looked like my hair. It was like stick straight, you know, and black. But anyway, it's kind of, it's like it's a private joke type of a thing, but it's definitely not sensual. Is the wig more sexy than the hair? So right, again, that's what I said about the Kim Kardashian sheitel. If your wig is legit sexy, then you're not fulfilling the spirit of the law. Are you still keeping the letter of the law, which is a married woman should cover her hair? Yes, you are. And that shouldn't be sneezed at. But are you violating the spirit of the law? Quite potentially, because we don't want to be provocative, right? We don't want that. How is covering your hair directing your sensual energy towards your husband? Because again, your hair is symbolizing all of that sexy energy and you're saving it just for him. It's basically just involved between you and him. So therefore it is part of the circle of intimacy that you share. Okay, someone asked a good question. If someone was sexually active before marriage, do they have to cover their hair? So actually there is a discussion in the Talmud about this, since that's the reason, like part of the reason given is that, and the rabbis determined this is not, this would not work for obvious reasons. Anyone read the Scarlet Letter? Okay, so this would not work. And so to save people's dignity, this was not adopted. But if you look in the Hasidic world, right, you'll see the young girls wear braids. Right? They usually wear 2 braids when they're little and 1 long braid as they get a little older, or vice versa, I don't remember. And that's for this. That's because it's like the Amish, like as they're growing into themselves as a woman, they want their hair to be more tzniut, to be more modest. And by the way, the laws of modesty regarding wigs relate to pretty much exactly the way you would do your own hair. Meaning, if you have a lot of like tons of luscious hair, that's also not so modest as a single woman. So it's the same with a wig. It's the exact same thing. These are amazing questions. Great. I wonder if the hair shaving concept here is a reason as to why Satmar Chassid do this, restraint. No. So the two reasons given for why certain parts of the Hasidic world shave, and it's not the majority, it's the minority, but the reason that they give is, number one, when they go in the mikvah, which is that pool of natural water that we go to, to keep the laws of family purity. So if you have a lot of hair, so it's potentially possible to go under the water and have your hair up on top of the water, which would then violate your immersion. Okay, so that's one reason. Okay, so what do? We just do a cannonball. That's what I tell people. Okay, so this is so funny. Okay, so I've got to get a background or something. Okay, so that's one reason given. And the other reason given is that they don't want any hairs to show, because they're holding by the Zohar, which is that mystical work, which says that no, not even any hairs should be showing. And like, even with this, if the bangs break a little bit, you could see my hair, you know what I'm saying? So if I had no hair, if I had shaved my head, okay, there'd be no chance of that. So those are the two reasons given for shaving. And again, most, I would think Sephardi, but certainly most Ashkenazi rabbis do not agree with this custom. If it's not your custom, it shouldn't be your custom, because it's not considered such a great idea. If we're covering our hair because hair is sensual, then why is it okay to cover our hair with a wig? And also, a lot of wigs are a lot more beautiful and sensual than natural hair. Okay, I'm repeating myself. Okay, but we said this. So again, the letter of the law is cover your hair. The spirit of the law is don't be provocative and sexy. Okay, if your wig is sexy and provocative, you are keeping the letter of the law and not the spirit of the law. Do we all need to do inner work and grow? Yes. Are we allowed to judge anyone else? No. Okay, does everyone we all got it? Okay, great. By the way, there are really different opinions amongst the rabbis regarding wigs. So, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, as I said, felt that that was a better way to cover your hair. Rav Ovadia Yosef says scarves are better. But neither the Lubavitcher Rebbe nor Rav Ovadia would ever say that a woman doing the opposite of what he recommends is not keeping the mitzvah. And that's what's really important is, some of these ladies who send me materials before my hair covering class, it's just really important to have a sense of humility and not judge anyone else, okay? But again, there's no mitzvah to be ugly or schlumpy dumpy frumpy, okay? Whatever you want to wear that makes you look classy, beautiful, and dignified, that's what you should wear. At the Royal Ascot in England, all men and women still need to wear hats to be allowed admission. That's so cool. What's that? What's the Royal Ascot? Someone needs to write in, but that's really cool. I've spoken to men about the power of hair and they all admit it's true, religious or not. Very interesting. I'd love to hear more conversations about that. Not sure if this was addressed yet. If you place your hair in a bun and wear a hat showing a bit of the bun, is that allowed? So again, not according to the majority sources, but again, could that be part of a woman's growth process? Yeah, but definitely not okay halachically according to most sources. I couldn't tell the difference when I first started learning about Orthodox Judaism, but then I started to be able to notice a sheitel versus regular hair. Totally true. Like, I think I've been fooled once in my 25 years, and it was from someone blonde. It was like a blonde wig, you have to get a really, really good wig if you're a blonde, and it looked so natural. And the truth is, when people pull out their own hair over top, which again is not so okay, it's really hard to tell because you really can't see the hairline at all. I know the answer partially, but also sometimes I'm like, why isn't a bun good enough? I doubt any guy sees a bun and is like, wow, that's hot. Right. Why can't you put your hair in a non-sexy style? Right. So I hear that, but we don't really understand men's brains. Important point to realize. So something that we would think is not sexy and attractive, they might think is. It's very hard for us to really understand that. And again, the halacha says cover your hair, so we don't have to make up something new. How do you find balance where you still feel confident put together in a sheitel? So it really takes a lot of what's called patchkiing. Okay, so like when I first got this wig, it was way too much hair, and I looked like I don't even know what, like a doll or something. So I had to I got them to like thin 30% of the hair in the front to have it be more normal. Then I took it to my second lady and she did like some side bangs and layers. Then I had to take it back to her to do a few more layers because it wasn't sitting right. It's a little bit of a patchki. And then I got some highlights put into it, so it's like right off the bat, it's usually not the way you like it. You have to kind of fuss with it a little bit and find someone good who you can bring in pictures of what you want it to look like. And I do find that the more money you spend, the more comfortable it is, right? You probably would not be able to tell the difference between this one and my other one, which it was more expensive, even though it was shorter, but it's more comfortable. And that's the thing. If you spend a little bit more money, it's usually a little bit more comfortable on your head, which I think is really important. The Lubavitcher Rebbe used to give people money to give a woman money to buy a sheitel because he felt this is such an important mitzvah, and if she couldn't afford it, he wanted her to get something very, very beautiful where she felt proud to cover her hair and beautiful and dignified. No, I don't think that's true about the light hair necessarily. So it's fine to get a blonde wig. Again, if it's platinum blonde, that might be like a bit much. We want it to be modest and not overly eye-catching. Right. So this question about when a woman turns of age. No. So again, there is a discussion in the sources of should a single woman cover her hair under certain circumstances? And they ruled no, that we're not going to do this. By the way, a woman who was married and either divorced or widowed, the majority opinion is that she should continue to still cover her hair. Although if it's going to get in the way of her finding a shidduch, like if a man thinks she's married and then won't, you know what I'm saying? So then there are rabbis who will say she can uncover her hair. Do you get your hair cut in a mixed salon? When I first got married, I did. And then a couple of years in, I didn't feel comfortable any longer. And so now I go to my wig lady cuts my hair also. So she has her own private basement. Maybe I'll take you guys on a tour after Corona. And she has this whole basement office, really cool, gajillions of sheitels and whatever. So she cuts my hair also. And she's the one who did this updo for the bar mitzvah. I know you already touched on this, but does a woman need to have her hair covered at home when it's just her and her husband at a Shabbos meal or throughout the day? No. So she should cover it when he's saying brachas, although he could look away, but it's best if he's saying Kiddush and Motzi that she has her hair covered. But, and I do keep it covered at the Shabbos table because I feel like it's more what's it called? B'kavadik, honoring of the Shabbos meal to keep my hair covered. But then I go to the couch and I whip off my beanie. So if it's just the two of us, obviously just six of us at this point. But yeah, and it's funny because my kids know when mama has something on her head, she's probably going out. Especially the sheitel, going out, or at this point teaching a Zoom class. Okay, do you have sources for other forms of hair covering, like sources that permit partial covering? I don't really have those sources. Again, go to rabbimanning.com and you can download and print out the source sheet. From my recollection of it, it didn't talk about uncovering more than a tafach. So there may be some more modern Orthodox rabbis that ruled that way. I don't know. It's not my community, so I didn't learn it that way. Where can we follow you? Do you have a WhatsApp share to follow? Oh, thanks. No, I don't have anything like that. I'm on Facebook. I know y'all are young and you're like, who does Facebook? We all do Instagram. Okay, but I'll have you know that all the college girls that I speak to get on Facebook just for me. I'm just kidding, but they do follow me on Facebook, and I can't do 2 social media at one time. It's too much for me. I'm already addicted enough, so I'm just on Facebook. So I try to publish a lot of great content on Facebook, so you can follow me on Facebook, Kate Devorah Rose Kigel. That's on Facebook. I have a lot of to-do plans. There's a lot of content on my website also, but I really want to write a book, and there's a lot of stuff I want to do, but so stay tuned. Okay, when do you start covering? The day of your wedding? Oh, this is such a good question, Jenny. Okay, so according to most sources, a woman needs to cover her hair the next morning after her wedding, i.e. when she could have had relations, even if they didn't have relations the first night, when she could have, so the next day she starts covering. However, you may have noticed if you've been to some of these weddings, I think the German Jews, the Yekis maybe, and certain Hasidic groups view it as preferable to start covering the hair after the yichud room, which is the room of seclusion that you go into for 10 minutes after the chuppah, but before the dancing. And so either she'll put on her sheitel in there, or her turban in there, or sometimes they just start off the wedding in a wig because they don't want to deal with fussing around and putting something on. So I've been to weddings where the bride herself is wearing a wig at the chuppah, right? But that's minority opinion. The majority opinion is you can totally have your hair uncovered throughout the entire party, go home to the hotel, and the next morning you cover your hair. Great question. Okay, such great questions here. Can't wait the answer. Is it possible to have the Q&A before the fashion show? Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is recorded. So, you know, I will, you know, be in touch with me if you want to, if you had to cut out early. These people are not hearing that, but you can tell them. Okay, why is beard hair not considered evil in the Esav comparison? So according to the Kabbalah, the mystical sources, a man's beard is compared to chesed. It's like kindness, loving kindness, and the hair on either a man's or a woman's head is considered to be Devorah or din or judgment. And that's where, again, it falls into the Yetzer Hara thing. Okay, but it doesn't mean that's bad. Right? Think Samson. Remember Samson with his hair? Got him into trouble. Okay, but anyway, I should put that in the class. It's a good thing. Okay, armpit hair. Right, I don't know what the symbolism is with that. Men wear kippot from age 3. Women don't cover their hair until marriage. What's the explanation? So again, the comparison that I was making between the kippah and the hair covering is not, it's not in every way comparable. It's just, it's an outward sign for a man that he's a religious Jew, and is an outward sign for a woman that she's a religious Jew. That's the only comparison, and you know that it connotes humility and modesty. But yes, a boy starts wearing a kippah at age 3 when he, you know, sometimes they have the custom to cut his hair then. We did that, and that's when he starts learning Torah. And so he needs to always have his kippah on when he's learning Torah and when he says blessings, and he's supposed to remember that God is above him. Okay, what if I feel ugly when I cover my hair? Find a way to do it that makes you feel beautiful. And again, that's really was the mindset of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You see the Chabad girls, they have the nicest wigs. He really felt like a woman should feel beautiful. Even when she's married, she shouldn't feel ugly. So whatever you want to do, whatever you can do to make yourself feel beautiful in this mitzvah. I'll be honest, when I got this one, this is my most recent one, I started crying when I put it on. Ladies, I'm married 20 some odd years. I started crying because I felt so blech. So as I told you, it needed like 5 patchkis, and now I'm happy with it, you know, but you got to keep working on it until you feel great. You want to feel great doing it. Hashem doesn't want us to serve him grumpy. He wants us to serve him b'simcha, joyfully. Okay. How can a friend who couldn't make it to the Zoom find the recording? So Olami should be posting it, I guess. I don't know, but I will have it. So anyone who needs it, you send them to me and I will give it to them. I was taught that a woman's tefillin is her uterus. Whoa, that's cool. I never heard that. Interesting. I doubt it was a guy who invented it. I don't know. The wig grip, maybe it was a guy, a girl, I don't know. But whoever it is, going straight to heaven. How do you still feel like yourself when covering your hair? So you know what? It's such a good question, Katya. I feel like a different me. I feel like me, but different. Like I do feel different when I'm just wearing, you know, when I just have my own hair. It's like the private me that only my family sees. And then this is like the going out me. This is like the Torah teacher and the dating coach and the whatever, you know, that, so it's, I feel me, but it's like a different me. And then my hair, as I told you, is pretty short. So it's like a super cute short haircut. It looks very different. And that's like the private me. So they're both me, but they're just different. I like the fall. Great. So yeah, great. Do whatever you need to do. Someone asked the question that now I'm pondering as well. If covering your hair is a sacrifice that you're making between you and Hashem and a mitzvah, and you're covering your hair with hair and you're not supposed to be sensual and beautiful to other men, what's the hair does? So if you're doing all the sensual and beautiful wigs. Okay, so I think this is still the same question, which is, you know, what's the deal with wigs? Okay, so again, there are Rabbanim who are not so into wigs. There are Rabbanim who are more into wigs. Obviously, if you look around the Ashkenazi world, the vast majority of women cover their hair with a wig. If you go to Teaneck, though, you'll see a lot of, you know, scarves and like beanies and whatever. It really depends on your community. And even in the Sephardi world in America, I know a ton of Sephardi Rebbitzins who cover their hair with a wig. So, you know, again, as long as it's not provocative and sexy, you're good. Okay. And it's a gray area. We have to all stretch ourselves and look into ourselves. And again, not judge other people. I wear fall when I work out. Yeah, you look adorable in that. When do you start covering the day of your, okay, great. We did that. What's a half wig? There is such a thing as a hat fall, which is like netting on top and just hair coming out, and you wear a hat on top. And there is something called a kippah wig, which is, according to most opinions, not so halachically acceptable, which basically just sits on top of your actual hair and just kind of all the hair mixes together. Like your hair and the sheitel hair mixes together. It's considered not so appropriate, but again, if it's a step in the right direction, great. Okay, where does your hair go in the Wonder Wig? So I have short hair, so I just stuff it in. If you had longer hair, you could like make, you know, plates with a barrette and stick it up, or like a bun up there, and it just goes in the cap. Okay, and then you take the actual wig and you make it into like a pony or a bun on top. And then you always have to be wearing the headband. So if you're not into headbands, it's not a look for you. But I think it looks really cute and young, and like I probably won't be able to do this forever, but okay. Yeah, Wonder Wig, WUNDER, WIG. Okay, speak to me if you need the recording. Can we ask questions out loud? Sure. If you have a question, ask it out loud. Yes, it's being recorded. Because of the 2-inch rule, okay, it's not 2 inches. Okay, not 2 inches. 2 tefachs, okay? I mean, sorry, a tefach, which is 2 fingers, which is definitely not 2 inches. It's basically like an inch, I would say, at max. So it has to be less than an inch. I could get the centimeter for you, but I don't know. But it's definitely not 2 inches, 2 fingers. Is that why women are able to pull out some hair in the front to make their shapes look more natural? So I think it's a great question you're asking. I think that they're misinterpreting the tefach. Because really, if you were to take all of this out, it's going to be way more than a tefach. So I remember when I did it, I was thinking to myself, I don't even know if I was thinking, but if I was thinking to myself, I was thinking, okay, whatever, I'm only taking like a few hairs right here, and I'm pulling it over, but those hairs are very long. So that's why it doesn't really fall into the tefach. But so again, my impression is that girls who are doing it are not really aware of the halacha. Most of you probably never had a class on hair covering before, right? My girls have never had a class on hair covering before. My oldest had it for the first time when she was in seminary, and not all the seminaries teach it. So it could be that a woman is covering her hair and she doesn't actually know the halacha, which in my mind is a problem. I actually had a friend who grew up religious, and then she married a Kiruv rabbi, and so she moved to an out-of-town community, and the ladies in the community said, can you give a class on hair covering, like why we cover our hair? And she was like, yeah. And then she was like, wait, why do we cover our hair? So she had to call my friend who's a Baal Tshuva to find out why we cover our hair. Okay, this would never happen as a Baal Tshuva, because there's no way I'd stick this thing on my head if I didn't know something about it. You know what I'm saying? But like my daughters don't think that way. Thank God. My daughters are so excited to cover their hair because to them, it's a symbol of being married. It's like normal and natural and fun and exciting, right? It's like, it's not weird to them like it was to me. Thank God. Yes, that would be frowned upon, pulling out. But again, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I'm being honest here. I don't think that those girls who pull out hair are doing it because they know it's a violation. I think they're confused and they're not sure. 2 fingers. Okay. I can't think of one more or less holistic Orthodox person who I'd want to emulate. I'm sure they exist. I just don't even know where to stumble upon the unicorn. Oh, family, professional, and social. Me? I don't know. I know so many women like myself. I know a ton of women like myself. Like Passaic is full of us, you know, women who have a passion, have a job, love their family, are normal. You know, not all of us grew up religious. Some did, some didn't. There's so many normal people here. You have to find your community. That's really, really, really important. You have to find your community where you meet women that you want to be like. And where you don't feel judged. Love this talk, Devorah. Thank you. It was great chizuk for myself. Love hearing you speak. Thanks. Where's the Torah source for a tefach? Okay. So I really want you guys to download this and print this out yourself. But Rav Moshe rules that even though it's commendable for women to cover all their hair in accordance with the Khatam Sofer, a woman who wishes to be lenient and uncover some hair, it's not to be considered to be acting inappropriately. Rav Moshe sets the maximum hair, which may be showing as 1 square tefach, 2 fingers across the head. Okay, but that is one opinion. Okay, there are opinions that say all hair should be covered. So again, this is why it's so important to have your own rabbi. Okay, anyone who is struggling with this, to sit down with their personal rabbi and discuss the issues with them. If you have a Rav that is legit and you are holding by him, you can feel confident in that. The problem is a lot of people don't ask. And so they just look around at what other people are doing and they're like, oh, okay, so that's enough for me. And of course that's not what we do with halacha. We really want a rabbi to rely on, and he can take you through the sources as he understands them, and that's like an excellent exercise. Is it important to dress tzniusly at home when cooking, baking challah, or saying prayers? That's such a good question. I mean, I can hear the mentality of being more dressed when you're doing like a mitzvah, like taking challah, and certainly once your kids are around, I do feel it's important to dress in a pretty dignified way. You don't have to dress like, like you're going outside, but it should be, you always want to look dignified, somewhat dignified in front of your kids. So you would have to ask your LOR as far as like what you need to have covered, when you're doing things like that. But I think it's more like a sensitivity than a halacha. And certainly once you have kids, everything changes. I've heard that if you cut your hair and make it into a wig, that's fine to wear. Is that true? Extraordinarily minority opinion, but yeah, because it's no longer attached to your head. So it loses that power. How do you know what hairstyle looks good on you? Cutting a wig is different than your own hair. So I feel like you need to change the style from your natural hair. Well, what's scary is the wig doesn't grow back. So you want to do it gradually because it's never going to go back. So just kind of gradually take a picture with you to show her, of kind of what you want. And she does it gradually. So then you're like, oh, a little more. And then you're hopefully happy with it. How often do you wash your wig? So they recommend as little as possible, actually, because the more you wash it, the less long it's going to last. And it actually holds a style better when it's a little bit not so clean. It's kind of weird to say, but I probably do it every couple months, 2 to 3 months, or before a simcha or something. You get to try on all different styles and cuts. Totally. You could like have a short bob and like long, blonde, red, whatever. Have fun with it. It's another accessory. Ascot is basically a royal horse racing event because England is very into ceremonies. Oh, and they wear all the hats. Yes, right. I knew that. Okay, great. That's so cool. What is it called? Ascot. Okay. What brands have you found comfy as far as wigs? So my favorite is called a Clary, which my shorter one is a Clary. That's probably, you've seen me, most of the videos I do on Facebook, that's the one I'm wearing. So it's a Clary, and they run from about 1,500 to 2,200, something like that. This is an Irene, which we have an Emet student. My husband works for Emet, and we have an Emet student that sells them. So I got it from them. And this is a little bit cheaper than a Clary. So Irenes usually run between, like, depending on the length, like 600 to 2,000, 600 to 1,500, something like that. Yeah. Is it okay to use a different hair color once you get a sheitel? Yeah, sure. Have fun with it. Definitely. Anonymous, please. As a Jewish woman with babies, my husband only sees my nice hair when we go out once in a blue moon. I don't cover my hair. According to halacha, I should cover it outside and open inside, but then I will literally never have nice hair. Getting pretty at home is non-existent. Kids puke on my shoulder daily. I relate. So I don't know what to tell you. I still keep my hair cute at home, even though it is mostly covered, but it still looks cute when I take this off and like fluff it a little bit. It looks cute. And we definitely should always be pretty for our spouse. Are there sheitel gemachs? Yes. Yes, there are. And there is even financial assistance to buy sheitels. So don't ever feel like it's a financial issue. Okay. I can put you in touch with the right people. What wig brands do you recommend? So again, I like Clary. This is Irene. What else do people like? The blonde girl, Gali, people like. There are Sheitel Gemachs, but I got a stunning one for 600 straight from China. Except we don't want to buy stuff from China right now. Okay. Wig brands really have to do with your color, head, hair. Sari, Irene are very good brands. Dini is the highest end. You can follow all these on Instagram. I found Wonder Wig to be the most comfortable, but the look isn't for everyone. Right. Me and Chaya both look younger than we are, so we can get away with the Wonder Wig, but most of my friends would be like, that's weird. Like, we're like in our 40s. What's the best brand for blonde hair? I don't know. Chaya, maybe you can look into that for Katya. I don't know what the best brand is for blonde. Oh, she left. Okay. So Katya, you be in touch with her. What's your email so we can get the recording? It's my name, devorahkigel@gmail.com. Oh, someone already wrote it. Great. Okay. What's Olami? Oh, okay. So Olami is the umbrella group of college outreach people that me and my husband belong to, because my husband is campus director for EMET and I am a freelance speaker for many of these organizations. So Olami is really, someone put the website up there, but they do amazing, amazing stuff. Big Kiev organization. Their goal is to inspire Jewish greatness. Yes, and my tagline is, whatever mitzvot you do is really only your business between you and Hashem, but you have no heter, that means no leniency, to be an uneducated Jew. So my goal is to get you learning. Whatever you do with that is only your business, and that's it. No one else's business. But you can't be uneducated. I have my master's degree in French, and I had like a kindergarten education in Judaism. That's so sad, right? So I wanted to up my knowledge in Judaism to make it match. What about the need to cover in your own backyard? It's private, but perhaps neighbors from their attic can see into the backyard. That's a great question. I was just asking my husband. It seems like that would be considered the katzer, I think, which is the in-between. Right? So it's kind of like it's like your own private, the courtyard, whatever it's called in Hebrew. It's your courtyard. It's not completely private like your bedroom, but it's basically private. And it's really their responsibility not to look. So, ask your LOR. From my understanding, you would probably not be violating anything by uncovering your hair there, but you could certainly talk to a Rav. Thank you. Mind blowing. Thank you. Thank you. If anyone wants to learn how to wrap with different kinds of scarves, they can reach out to Rebecca. Great. I show colleagues how to wrap with volumizers like in Israel. Great. So she is so much more coordinated than me. And like these things are like out of this world. I cannot do anything of that regard. So yes, get in touch with Rebecca at Rage. I also wonder about that because the distance, they aren't close. They can't tell if you're in a wig or not. So, it's interesting. Once you start developing an eye for these things, I can spot a sheitel a mile away. But it takes some time to spot it. And again, mostly this is for you, not other people. Again, you're not supposed to look provocative, but that's the same with your regular hair, right? As a single person. Do you have any books that inspired you on hair covering? Unfortunately, there isn't any. That's the problem. So there's this book, which, okay, I guess I will half-heartedly recommend it. No, there were no books. I just basically went to Israel to learn at Neve. And after a month there, it became so normal to me to see women with hair covered. I was like, oh, okay. It was so weird. Like, it was just like by nature of it being normal. It was a very strange evolution. I'd never, ever do this mitzvah. What's your favorite wig company? I don't know. Like, I like Clary, but I think there's so many wig brands out there. You can definitely play around. Where can we get financial assistance for wigs? So be in touch with me. Depends on your city, but there's always a wig gemach. There's always some assistance available. I'm sure the Chabad would help because that was really the Masorah, the tradition of the Rebbe. But in addition, like in Passaic, we have a wig gemach. So that, a wealthy woman who would get a new wig every 2 to 3 years, she would put her wig in a gemach. She would give her old wig to a gemach and it's perfectly wearable. She just wanted to get a new one. I don't have that problem. When I get rid of my wig, it's like done. It's like a mouse at this point. Like it's basically dress up for my kids for perm. Can I get the recording? Yeah, please be in touch with me privately. What are your thoughts on very natural looking wigs like lace top? I'm surprised someone didn't ask me this till now. So I personally don't have lace tops because I did not on a personal level want to take that extra step to make it ultra natural. That was my personal decision. I'm not judging anyone who does that. Again, the point is not to fool everyone. The point is to cover your hair in an attractive way. Okay, so I personally didn't want to take that extra step to make it so impossible for anyone to tell. You know, like if you go close to me, you can tell because I don't have the lace there, right? But the lace, basically, for people who don't know, it's like a piece of lace that comes down to here, and the hair is like growing out of the lace. And so it literally, you can't tell. Like you have to have a really good eye to be able to tell if that's a wig, because it literally looks like the hair is coming out of their forehead. So I personally didn't want to take that step to make it that natural. That's just my personal feeling. Okay, thanks for the class. You have a fun way of speaking. I appreciate your time. Thank you. I appreciate that. I like to feel that at least no one's falling asleep. And we had almost 100 women on this call. It's so beautiful. So, and there were a lot of competing classes. So I had so many women reach out to me. I can't come. Can I have the recording? So I want to just give everyone a bracha who's remaining and the people who already left, that we should all find our way in this mitzvah in our own way, in our own time, on our own highway, not judging other people and not feeling judged by other people, and really try our hardest to connect to this mitzvah, to do it as besimcha as we can, but while realizing that even if you do not like this mitzvah for the rest of your life, that it's probably the biggest karban, the biggest sacrifice that you can give to come close to Hashem, because you're literally doing it just because he said so and you want to be close to him and pay back your debt that you owe him. So that's my bracha. Amen. We should all find some simcha in this mitzvah. And someone's asking me if lace tops are halachically valid. Yeah, I don't think they're violating anything, you know, certainly not to the letter of the law. They're not violating anything, just like whatever. I just felt like it was a little bit too much of a fake out, and I didn't want to do the too much of a fake out. That's just my own personal decision, not judging anyone else. So find your own way with this mitzvah, ladies. You should find simcha in it, as much joy as you can, and enjoy the journey. Okay, thank you so much. Bye, guys.